In 1928, a civil engineer from New Zealand was commissioned by the British to build a strategic road stretching across northern Iraq to the Iranian border. His name was Archibald Hamilton. Completed in just 4 years, and now called the Hamilton Road, this incredible feat of engineering would cross mountains, seemingly impassable gorges and rivers. As well as this, Hamilton would have to contend with more human obstacles, such as warring tribes, brigands, bureaucrats, injury and disease. Hamilton's story is fascinating. He had little to none of the modern day equipment such as bulldozers to deal with such hard terrain. On top of that, it was a time of complex tribal disputes within Kurdistan. Such a project could never succeed without dealing with the various tribal leaders. Hamilton had to use his skills of diplomacy to get these tribal leaders to not just accept and buy into his project, but also to provide support in terms of security and workforce. Even the basic equipment and supplies of the time were in short supply, and he was forced to fashion his own explosives to get through the impassable rock in steep valleys. Today we'll travel along the path of the Hamilton Road, telling some of Hamilton's little-known story along the way. We'll enjoy amazing sights, and take a light-hearted look at the place where southern Iraqis from Baghdad and other major cities go on their holidays to cool down. Come with me on a journey. Okay, first things first, I'm going to meet up with my friend and guide Haval. As a fairly experienced and independent traveller, I'd normally just go solo, but without knowledgeable local help I can never get around the places I want to see in the time I have here. Haval is very well respected in the traveller community, and after speaking with him online and over the phone, we're now going to meet up in Erbil and spend the next 6 days travelling together. And so we head out onto the road out of Erbil to follow the Hamilton Road towards Iran. Even in the outskirts of Erbil, we see what's going to become a very familiar Kurdish sight of a farmer taking his sheep down the road. It was in Shaqlawa where Hamilton first reported for his new post and learned of the road that was needed. The first goal was to link from there to Rawanduz, before eventually heading right through the Zagros mountains into the Persian plateau. The only real link at the time to the major Persian cities such as Tehran was through Russia, but for centuries there had been a caravan trail through Rawanduz into Persia. If this more direct route could be made use of, then the time to move goods to and from Persia would be greatly reduced. The original plan was to build a railway, so a railway engineer had actually started the project before Hamilton's time there, partially completing a section between Erbil and Shaqlawa. Sense prevailed and that idea was given up on in favour of the road due to the terrain. Nowadays, Shaqlawa is popular with the Iraqi holidaymakers from the south. Its location between the mountains has always given the town ice-cold spring water, giving it an abundance of greenery, rich produce and waterfalls. It was a little quiet when we drove through there today, unfortunately. We were too early in the day for its lively bazaar, and too early in the year for the large part of the local holidaymaker hordes. As we head further away from Erbil, following the road between Shaqlawa and Rawanduz, we see the landscape unfolding, and Hamilton's challenges become all the more real. The mountain ranges get ever higher, until later we'll see they become capped with snow as we head towards the Iranian border. This is the landscape of Kurdistan, rugged and beautiful, and far removed from the flatlands and the deserts of the south. On the way we'll stop at Gali Ali Bag waterfall, which is said to be the highest waterfall in the Middle East. During the warm months, many thousands of tourists from all over Iraq flock to the waterfall to make the most of the slightly cooler air from the water. The area is enjoyed as a picnic spot, with little boats to ride. It even holds a special significance to many Iraqis, as it's featured on the 5,000 dinar note. Today it's also a small resort with a waterside souk and a host of terrace cafes. To me though, although the waterfall itself is a force of nature, the man-made area around it just seemed a little fake and artificial, to be honest. Still, many people enjoy it, so who am I to argue with that? The part of the road we're now on is the one remaining part of the original Hamilton Road. Most has been expanded, rerouted or rebuilt with modern machinery. The original part of this section is replaced with the new road the other side of the river now. It's in this route between the narrow canyons of Rawanduz that a formidable barrier was posed for Hamilton. When he arrived in this valley, he said it would be his graveyard. Though as it was where he'd remain for a full 2 years of the project. Everyone knew that success or failure of the whole project would depend entirely on what happened here. It took months of exploration to find what would be the route through the bottom of the canyon. In autumn there were 1,000 men employed on the project, though this did decrease significantly in the harsh weather of the winter. The skills of the men working was also improving at the same time, particularly with the drilling of holes in which to place the explosives. These explosives would create space for the road in the hard rock cliffs of the canyon. Those tasked with lighting the explosives were specially chosen. The blasters, as they were called, had to be the fastest runners, pretty much running for their lives as blasts flung rocks and debris into the sky and everywhere around. So heading up to Korek Mountain now. There's going to be a cable car up there, which should be quite a cable car ride and quite a view from up there. I'm quite keen to do this. Going to take the coat because there'll be snow up there, it's high enough. So I'm at the bottom of Korek Mountain to go up on the cable car to the Korek Mountain Resort. It's only a popular local activity here. I'm in quite a little queue to go up there, but understand why. It's a beautiful day, it's going to be a beautiful view, so why not? Certainly going to do this myself. Is this a Swiss ski resort, or is this Iraqi Kurdistan? Yep, it's Iraqi Kurdistan still. So just been up the cable car. This is the top of Korek Mountain. It certainly seems a very popular place with the locals. It's already met one family from Baghdad coming up here for holiday. There's a lot of things here, skiing and snowboarding and well, all sort of other activities you do up on a snowy mountain basically. Again, yet another thing you don't really expect to find around here, but it's just bustling with local life and local tourism. It's kind of bizarre being up here in the mountains in the snow in Kurdistan, Iraq, but it's a lovely place really. It's just local life, local families, local tourists coming here to have fun, to be in a different environment up in the mountains. So I found a little cafe just up by the cable car station here, so just going to sit down and enjoy a coffee and enjoy the view.
Where's your noise now? Okay! There we go, there we go.
So if you're wondering what all that noise was about on the cable car, that was another group of Iraqi tourists from Baghdad. They were fun guys, tried to speak a bit of English with me, making a lot of noise, having a bit of fun, all good, all good. So many tourists here coming up from Baghdad. They're also travelling around the Kurdistan region. They said they were, also going to stay in Suleimania tomorrow. So it really seems to be the place for local tourism around here. Now I know you're looking at this and you're thinking I'm cheating, aren't you? You're thinking I'm in Nepal, but no, I'm in Iraq, Iraqi Kurdistan. It's unreal. This just looks like a sight from Nepal to me. It's absolutely beautiful. It's absolutely stunning. Can you believe this is Iraq? Rawanduz town has an incredible and commanding location between two canyons, with the beginning of the Rawanduz Gorge on one side and the Hadrin Chai on the other. In Hamilton's time, there were no proper roads up to town like there are today. There was only an ancient track where all the caravans of merchants would come, paying tax to either the government or the ruling chieftain, whoever was in power at the time. Beyond Rawanduz, the Bursarini Gorge presented Hamilton with problems almost as bad as those of the Rawanduz Gorge. Existing animal tracks were extremely dangerous, if even present. Many tons of explosives would be needed to blast a path for the road, and many bridges needed back and forth to cross the river. Hamilton's book tells the story of one of the most infamous of Kurdish outlaws that resided in the area at the time. Simcoe Ismail would dwell in these remote places, safe from punishment for his crimes. As always the case in these times though, surrounding powers were often very keen to dispatch of local tribal leaders and outlaws. So in 1930 the Persians set a trap for him. Temptation and greed got the better of him, and he walked right into it. He was sent a letter offering him a pardon for his crimes, and granting him the governorship of the Ushnu province near the Persian border. He jumped at this and went off to Ushnu, where he was given a house and put in command of a garrison. He ruled for 3 days there, ignoring talks of possible treachery, unaware that the Persians were secretly increasing the garrison and putting their counterplans in place. But why should he believe the possible treachery? Were the Persians not calling in the district's Kurdish tribal chiefs to support him? Simcoe received a message that he should meet with an important Persian visitor, and he and the Kurdish nomadic chiefs went out to meet the Persian. After waiting at the meeting point, they were informed that the Persian couldn't arrive that day after all. So Simcoe and his group turned around and headed back to town. Meanwhile, the Persians had stationed the garrison, armed with rifles, on the roofs of the buildings into town. As he and his group of 12 Kurdish chiefs arrived back into town at dusk, the Persians opened fire. The massacre marked the end, not just of Simcoe, but the Kurdish chiefs who were there with him. So what is this place called? This is another resort, right?
Shingelbana, yeah, it's a resort.
Shingelbana. Shingelbana. So just when things are seeming pretty bizarre already, and generally things are quite bizarre around here, we go to the Iraqi Kurdistan roller coaster. This one I've been looking forward to, I've got to admit. I'm super excited about doing this. It's crazy, but it looks like so much fun. Oh, I got it?
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Prefer you very slow.
Yeah, here we go. Whee!
So there's actually 2 different tracks on the Iraqi roller coaster. So I'm going to go and ride the second one now, because why come all this way and not do both? And then, hey, there's a zip line after that. Let's do it all. By the summer of 1929, the necessary equipment was coming to allow Hamilton to finish driving the roadway through the Rawanduz Gorge. The days of making do with the bare minimum were at an end, and many tons of explosives, machinery, tools and even bridges were beginning to arrive. It became a sea of relentless activity, blasting, drilling, laying the road and erecting the bridges. After a cold winter, in the spring of 1930, Hamilton and his vast team won through. The workers bounded ahead with the relatively easy work of creating the road through the plains on the other side. By 1932, the road had been completed all the way to Iran. With the great objectives achieved, it became time for Hamilton to leave. Unable to face goodbyes, he left quietly in the middle of a day's work, without a word of farewell. It was an incredible achievement, bringing together many different nationalities, cultures and religions to work together for a common goal. There was no slave labour on the project. Hamilton himself would travel back to Erbil to retrieve large amounts of money to pay the workers. Not the safest of activities at the best of times, and certainly extremely dangerous when he was outside of the protection offered by the tribes that he'd befriended. We'll leave the story of Hamilton Road here, travelling no further towards Iran today. We'll take a different road and tell a different story heading to the Iranian border in the next video in my Iraqi Kurdistan series. We finish full circle in a way, on the way back to Erbil. Khanzad Castle near the Khanzad Pass is close to where Hamilton's road began. And that sunset up by the castle here marks the end of a really fantastic day exploring along the Hamilton Road. This has been absolutely exhausting, but such a great adventure. Really, I go back to Erbil now, tired but definitely happy. Thanks for watching. I hope you've enjoyed the video. Hit that like button if you made it this far, and let me know what you think in the comments below. And if you haven't done already, please subscribe. More great videos from Kurdistan and beyond will be following. If you're interested in finding out more about Hamilton and his work, I recommend reading his book, A Road Through Kurdistan. You can also find Haval's details in the description below, should you be planning a trip to Iraq and need a great guide. Goodbye for now. Hope to see you next time.